Hi, this is Carl Potter, CFII, and that's Certified Flight Instructor Instruments. But today we're going to be a little more basic than the instrument flying. But bear with me because we're going to talk about saving money on your lessons. And I'm going to give you some tips and some techniques, some tools that you can get that are going to help you to save a lot of money. It's very expensive. Whether it's a hobby or you're going into it as a career. If you're going into it as a career, you might as well start building your library, your toolkit, things like that you can take with you. So there's a few things I'm going to show you here today, and then some things that you might want to pick up a little bit later, and I'll show you some in some other videos if you choose to go that route to watch other videos that I produce. But if you have any questions, you can email me, Carl at FlightSchoolTulsa.com, Carl at FlightSchoolTulsa.com, or you can text me at 918-269-5240. Now, first things first, I want you to know a couple of things. I've rounded this out to a little bit of an understanding so that you'll have an understanding. One thing we'll talk about a little bit is Hobbs time, instructor time, and also your time. And those are the three key things that are important to know when you're starting to learn to fly, because the Hobbs time, when you turn the master switch on the airplane, and pretty much that's when your time starts. You flip it on and you're going to pay whatever the hourly rate, whether dry or wet, at that point. If you're paying a dry fee, obviously you can turn it on and you're just going to be paying for the airplane without the fuel running through it, and then you're going to pay for the fuel. If you're doing it wet, then you turn it on, and as long as it's on, it's clicking away and charging you. You could, instead of that clicking sound that you hear in the Hobbs, for the owner or whoever owns the airplane and is renting it to you, it's kind of a ka-ching, 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 and if you get my drift. But as soon as you start the engine, then it starts costing them something to run it, because at that point the aircraft is burning fuel. And I know this just makes sense, but I want you to get a sense of what you can do to absolutely use your time, which is valuable to you. It's got a value to you. And then your instructor time, best use of your instructor time. It is not unusual for me to show up, and I try to get there early. If I'm back-to-back on flying, sometimes that might move back and forth. I may be 15 minutes late, but I'll always let you know that I'm going to be late because I get hung up with another student. Maybe we didn't get back in time, or we're having to run through some stuff. And I'll do the same thing with you. I may have to let the next student know if I'm working with you that I'm going to be tied up with a little bit with you. So it kind of goes back and forth on that. However, it is your time best spent to be there early. Most of the time, I'm going to be there early. I'm going to get there a little bit early. If it's starting on your lessons, I'm going to get there, check the plane out. I'm going to, number one, make sure it's got gas in it. Because a lot of times where we use planes to do instruction, somebody's already flown it. They left it, doesn't have any gas in it. They didn't call for the fuel truck to come out and fuel it up. So therefore, you're sitting there, and if you've scheduled with me from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, instructor time, then while we're waiting on the truck, ka-ching, 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 you're paying for me, because that's my time. Because just like you, my time is worth something, just like yours is worth something. So if you get out there 30 minutes ahead, check on the airplane, make sure everything's done, make sure it's full of fuel, make sure you've got oil, clean the windshield off, make sure it's clean. And we'll go through all this. I'll show you how to do that ahead of time and get out there. You inspect the plane. I'm going to ask you some questions, but it's only going to take a few minutes for me to look the plane over real quick, ask you some questions about what you checked, because I'm doing that as a part of your lesson anyway. Okay, so you can be ready. You can have the airplane ready so that when we click the Hobbs, when we start, you know what? You're getting a good solid lesson, and you're paying, your money's going further for you on your lesson. So the other thing to remember about time is frequency of learning. And that is very important. If you take a lesson once a week, going to take you a lot longer to get there. Even if you flew 4 hours a week, you know, and that's 4 hours in one time, which would be way, you can't do that much. And well, you can do that much, but you need to do that a little bit later in the lessons. Get those long hours, because otherwise it can be very frustrating, because at first we're getting you used to the airplane, getting you knowledgeable about the airplane. You're finding out where everything's at on the dash, what all that stuff is. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a few minutes. But at the same time, when we're out there and it's 2 hours, you want 2 hours of flying time. You want 2 hours of takeoff and landings and flying rectangles and doing S-turns and doing turns on a point and doing stall recognition training. And all of those kind of things go in there during that time. So we want to make sure that Hobbs time, when we're sitting there, we're not sitting there listening to the weather, so that we know what the weather's doing, which we have to get. If we're flying out of a Class D, a Class B, or a Class C, then obviously you got to get the weather, which is going to be ATIS. Which brings me to my first tool that I'd like to suggest that you buy, and that's one of these. This is a handheld radio. You can turn this to your ATIS before I get there, and right up until time, be checking and making sure that you have the proper ATIS before you ever flip the switch and the Hobbs starts turning. But if you're going to listen to the if you're going to listen to the weather, the ATIS on the airplane, you're going to have to turn the Hobbs on so that you can turn the avionics switch on. And when you do that, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. So think about it this way: a couple of $100 on one of these, anywhere from $200 to $300, depending on what you get. There are plain ones, and then there are ones that have approaches on them where you can actually tune in a VOR, or you can tune in a localizer so that you can actually follow it. My suggestion is not buying one that does that. You don't need that. What you need is communications. So buy a good communications radio. This one happens to be an ICOM. I like it. It's got a removable battery on it, and this is a battery pack that I can pack up with AA batteries, and it lasts quite a while. Especially, I'm using it for emergencies, but I'm also listening to ATIS. Now, I'm not going to bring my radio so that you can use it. You need to do that. You need to take responsibility as a new pilot and new student and spend your money on getting one of these. Because the other thing is, you come out to the airport early, or come out there on stay after the lesson, or come out on a day when it's kind of not a good day to fly and we're not flying, or an off day that we're not flying that day, I'm flying with somebody else, and you go out there and listen to the air traffic controllers, you listen to ATIS, you listen to the other students, you try to speak back, and we'll visit about that in one of the lessons that I'll have here that'll save you a lot of time, so that we can talk about repeating back. But if you can get to where you can listen to ATIS on this, it's going to save you a ton of money right there. Okay, so that's one tool. Another tool that you can bring that'll help you out is a good ball cap. Now, there's a couple of different ball caps. Now, this is my radial Jepson that I won at Oshkosh 2015. If you don't know what Oshkosh is, you need to look that one up. And most pilots know what that is. That's the Mecca for pilots. But if you'll notice, both of these, this one has a button on top of it. This one doesn't. The reason this one doesn't have a button on top is that way your headset doesn't push down on the button and hurt your head. Now, I wear this one a lot when I'm flying, but I know that the button's up there. And sometimes I have to kind of move my headset away from the button, otherwise that'll kind of give me a headache. So, get you a good hat, a good favorite one, because here's the deal. When you're flying, you need to keep that sun out of your eyes so that you can see real well and it protects you. Speaking of protecting your eyes, get a good pair of sunglasses. These are Randolphs. They're not cheap, but you know what? Hey, I look good in them, and on top of that, they work great. They are not polarized. These are tinted. Now, the reason for non-polarized is because if you're wearing polarized glasses, you may not be able to see your iPad, okay? And you might not be able to see some of the instruments because they may not show up. You put your sunglasses on, and all of a sudden, everything disappears as if everything's shut off. Had that happen to me with a student one day, and he started going, all the radios went off the way, and I'm sitting there looking, I'm going, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, what it was the way the screens are oriented and the way his glasses are oriented blanked them out because the polarization took them out. All you have to do to test that is take two things like this. If you have a polarized pair of sunglasses, hold them up like this, turn them, and when you turn them 90 degrees, it'll actually blank out. It's kind of a cool deal to play with, and you'll see that. But anyway, so that brought me to the next thing. An iPad, a good iPad for about $800, whatever. Find one on eBay, I don't care. Get one that is got a GPS identifier with it that you can use. A good iPad is essential because you're going to pick up Flight or Garmin package or whatever so that you can get all of your maps. And you need to get all your VFR maps that you're going to be flying in the area. Plus, it gives you weather, it gives you all kinds of information, and we'll play with that, and that'll be part of our lessons together, is learning how to use this. Because there's nothing like having all your maps on here. Trust me, when I first started flying, I had paper all over the place and carried a briefcase with all kinds of maps in it, especially on cross countries. And then I had to mark them and everything, and then they change every 28 days, and this changes every 28 days, but it updates automatically when I come home and plug it in to charge it up. It recognizes it's behind, so it just brings it up to date. So that's important. Then the other things, a few other things you can get that I'll have, well, essential is a good headset. Now, I use Zulu. You can get Zulu, Bose, David Clark's, I don't care what you get, but the one thing that I believe in is noise canceling headset. They are awesome. And this one comes in a nice little case. These are about $850, and these are really good headsets. And so if you want to get a good headset, if you'd like one like this, just talk to me and I'll see about getting, I can get one for you and you can pay me for them. We can work that out. But you need a good headset, and these headsets are essential, and you'll use them for all your flying career. If you get a good headset, if you decide to stop flying at any given time, if you get a good headset and not a cheap headset, you'll be able to resell it. Now, you may get half your money back, but that's about it. But it's essential to be able to hear me, hear the controllers. Now, I said Flight a while ago, you may go to an electronic flight logbook, and that's fine, and we can work with that, but you might also want to go with something like this. This is my last logbook. I use these, and I use a paper because I'm an old guy, and old guy like me, I just use a paper. I like writing in it, and I have a whole collection of these in my office, and they're all stacked up. So, you got to have a logbook of some kind, whether it be electronic or it be paper. Now, that's that one. The other thing is, it's a great tool for you to have is several types of pens or pencils that you like. Now, I like pens. Pencils, you say, well, I'm going to erase stuff. Yeah, I just scratch it out. That's all right. But anyway, you can get a pencil if you want to. I like pens and keep 2 or 3 of them handy, because if you drop one on the floor, you don't need to go digging for it. You need to be able to get to it. And that's something that you can do. Now, you can get you a knee pad. Now, this is just an old knee pad. I've had this one since I started flying. Used to have a deal where I could tie it down to my leg, and I hadn't used that in years. Just so you know, I don't tie it to my leg. I don't need to. I'm not going to be doing acrobatics and all that. So I keep this where I can move it around. But here's something I do, and that is I buy these collegiate books. Now, I go to Office Depot and buy these like 4, 5, 6 at a time. I use them in all my businesses that I'm in, and to make notes and keep up. But each one of these pages, if you'll look here, is a lesson. And in fact, if you're flying with me, you will have your lesson on there each day. Like that's a date, or that's a lesson and a lesson. It's a flight, and I put the hobs down, I put where we go, I put all my notes on what we did, takeoff, landing, so that I can keep a record. This is the way I keep a record that I have to maintain for 3 years on your flight training. Now, I suggest that maybe you do that. Get you a clipboard like this, because it's real handy. You can stick your pen in it, and it doesn't go anywhere. And this thing you'll be able to lay it in the floor. You'll be able to lay it up on the dash while you're buckling your seatbelt and putting your headset on, and then grab it, lay it in your lap. It also makes a good table to lay your iPad on. You can set your iPad on there, and you can doodle with it. But when the controller, or you're getting an aided controller, tells you something or whatever, you can write it down right here, and you can write your frequencies down. So I'll talk more about that in just a minute, in another lesson actually. The other thing is getting yourself a good flight bag. Now this one is a bright line. I don't care what you get. This is the big one. I don't even carry this thing that much, but you can put your headset in here. You can put all your snacks in there. You can put everything except the refrigerator in there. I mean, these things are big, and there's all kinds of designs out there, and you got to figure out which one you like. Most of the time I show up with, if I have my iPad, I have my phone, I have my clipboard, and that's pretty much it. Now, there's a couple of some material that you'll need to look about getting, and I'm going to give you this. First thing is a FAR aim book. Now this is the 2020. Get a FAR aim book, and if you'll notice, this one is got a lot of markings in it. You're going to get you a whole bunch of these little page markers at Office Depot, and get ready to mark up your book, because you're going to go through there and you're going to be able to find everything as you study, number one, but then as you do your practical test, or your oral, I'm sorry, your oral and your practical, but your oral flight test, so that you can get your pilot's license. So start with a fresh book, go through it, and get the latest one if it's going to be 2021. 22, whatever you're watching this video. I don't know, it's 2020 when I'm videotaping this. Now, the other thing you can get is this book, The Private Pilot Airplane. This is called the ACS, or Airman Certification Standards. And you're going to mark this one up. Now, this one's not marked up. I've got some that are marked up real well. And what you're going to do, I'll show you how to make the lessons as you go through here, how to make notes in here, and then you'll make markers on here where you can answer questions for your oral test. And you're going to also be learning at that same time. So it's real important to get this. This is about 10 bucks. I forget, they get 20 bucks or whatever for these. Yeah, 20 bucks. 20 bucks and 10 bucks, there's 30 bucks from the FAA, basically. And you can't print books that cheap, so that's good. Subsidized by the taxpayers. But anyway, I'll let you get those, and those are important. The other thing you might want to get, if you're flying an S model, an SP, 172 SP, or whatever you're flying, you can buy a POH on the airplane. Now this is the 1981 Skyhawk, and basically it's a P model Skyhawk information. This is the POH, just like we carry in the airplane. Now, no, you can't borrow mine. You get your own, okay? Because you need this in your library. I have several books in my library that I have POHs that I bought. These are not very cheap. If you can find somebody that's been flying and they have one, they want to sell it for 10 or 20 bucks, buy it. And then that way you've got it. And you might want to mark it up as well, because there's going to be questions on your test about this, and you can go right to the information manual for that airplane. Now, the one that's in the airplane, you know that. The POH that's in the airplane stays in the airplane. That is, it comes with the airplane. It stays with the airplane. It is a valuable piece of that airplane. So don't take it out of the airplane because the owner will be upset with you, whoever owns the airplane. All right. Now, then, for learning purposes, buy this book. This is the pilot, right here, Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. This is a great book. And if you'll notice, mine's all marked up as well. These are things, this is going to give you all kinds of information about airplanes and the airplane you're flying, different types of airplanes. It's huge. It's got a lot of stuff in it, but you're going to read it. Oh, you don't like reading? Too bad. Don't become a pilot, because reading and piloting go hand in hand. I know some of you are going, what? I don't want to do that. You know, this is your textbook. And by the way, I've had this one a while now. I took mine to the books, to the printer, and the printer busted this thing, broke it down, and then put the spiral in it for me. And I put a little plastic cover on it so that I can open it up like this for doing lessons and things like that. Now, get the most up-to-date one. This one is the FAA Hotel 8083-25A. Okay, that's the latest one I've got. They just update them from time to time. You might want to check that out. All right, so those are things that you really need to buy. Those are books you need to buy. Now, a good book for you to buy and read as well, and you might think, Carl, That seems like a waste of time. I've talked to a lot of older pilots that have read this after years, and they said, man, I wished I'd had this years ago. And it's called Stick and Rudder. And it's a book that was written in, I believe, 1949, if I remember correctly, by a German. And it has not been changed over the years. And it is full of all kinds of great information about how an airplane works. And it even talks about here in the new tricycle gear airplanes versus a conventional airplane, which is a tail dragger in this book. And so that's how far back that goes. And it just got some great information on it, and it'll help you understand what an airplane does even more. So I ask you to buy that one and read it, but that's not a have to. The other stuff, those are must buys. And so I would encourage you to do that. Now, so we talked about different things that you can do, different things you can buy, you can study, you can mark stuff up, you can start taking notes. That is huge. All the tools that you need, the radio, get the radio so that you can use your time better than my time, because I'm going to charge you by the hour from the time that we get there. We have a 2 to 4. It's going to cost you 2 hours for me. If we schedule 2 to let's say 2 to 3. Then, 2 to 6 is what I meant to say, 2 to 6, then we've got a 4-hour time frame that I have booked my life out for you. So I'm going to plan on charging you for 4 hours, and we're going to use that 4 hours. We're going to go over books, we're going to fly, we're going to do all those things, all inclusive. You may find an instructor out there that charges by the Hobbs time. They'll charge you, but here's what will happen. They will jump in the plane, and as soon as the Hobbs starts turning, they start teaching. As soon as the Hobbs goes off, they stop teaching. Now, that's not a good CFI in my book, and they may even round up. You may have one that says, well, I rounded up. If the Hobbs time is 1.6, I charge you 2 hours, and that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that, and don't push back if they do that, because that's not bad. In fact, that's what I used to do. But I got to where students wouldn't show up on time, they wouldn't be ready, they'd want to stand around and visit the whole time, and they'd tell me about what was going on in their life and everything else before we'd even get to the airplane. I'd say, well, we really ought to go flying because we got the plane scheduled and we need to be out there. I love it when I show up and the student says, I've got the airplane ready, I'm ready to go. In fact, I love it when they text me and they say, Carl, I'm here, I have the airplane inspected, we're fueled up, we've got oil, I'm ready to go when you are. And then I show up. I had one student, man, he did that every time, and he was awesome. He was bought into the system. He knew what he wanted to do, and he wanted to get it done, and he got it done a lot quicker. The other thing is to save money. You can go out and sit in the airplane and make airplane noises without the Hobbs on. If that airplane is out there, you can go typically to where you rent the airplane, and you can go out and sit in it. As long as nobody else isn't using it, you can go out there, borrow it, and borrow the key to go out and sit in it and get to know where everything's at. And look at stuff and know what it is. Name it. That way you can point at it and say, that's the airspeed indicator. That's the altimeter. That's the VSI. That's the DG. This is the whatever. There's the compass, all of that kind of stuff. But also you can lay your hands on it. You can point right at it and go straight to it. Then all your controls, like your mixture control, your throttle control, and your carb heat, if it has carb heat in it. And then you know right where your primer is, so that you can go right straight to the primer. You know right where your key is, so that you can absolutely go to it. The avionics switch, you know where all your fuses are. All of that is just real quick. Fuel switches, whatever you're flying, know where everything is in that airplane. Get to know the airplane. I have some of my students that take their cell phone and take pictures of the dash, take pictures of all inclusive in the airplane, so that they can get to know it. A lot of the rental airplanes have different types of radios, and you'll have to learn the different types of radios and the different types of audio systems. They're all do about the same. They do the same job. They may do it in a little bit different. You may have a transponder that's different in one versus the other, so you got to get to know them. You may have 3 or 4 airplanes they're using at the rental place. You've got to get to know each airplane. So that's real important. And that's how you can save money on lessons. The other way you can save money on lessons is looking into what I have is some videos that will help you. And I charge for those videos, and they are on demand. But they'll save you a lot of time because I'm going to talk about radio frequencies. I'm going to talk about how you can get in the airplane and get going pretty quick. Plus, you can watch them over and over within the time frame that you've actually rented those videos online. And that saves us time because I charge a lot when I'm there with you, but I don't charge quite as much, obviously. In fact, it's minimal on what I charge for the video. So that's my time. I'm just managing my time. You're managing yours, and I'm trying to help you save money on your lessons. So this is Carl Potter, your CFI, and I hope to see you out at the airport pretty soon. Again, if you have any questions, you know what my email is, carl@flightschooltulsa.com, or you can text me, 918-269-5240, and let's go flying.